Welcome to the OVAReact podcast, proudly sponsored by Johnny Walker, a bold flavor for those who make bold steps. To be enjoyed in moderation and drunk responsibly, not to be sold for persons under the age of 18.
In a society that puts women in a box.
Let's overreact boldly, and today I'm showing up in these bright colors because I'm showing up for me.
I love it. It's your girl Lush Angela. I feel bold because I'm in red.
And it's your girl Angela Boy, and I feel bold because I'm showing up as myself. All right, and ladies, today we are jumping into a very bold conversation around mental health and wellness. And to help us have this conversation is none other than one of our leads at Bonga, who's also a radio presenter at Capital FM, a mental wealth advocate across the board. We are so excited to have you overreacting with us. In studio, we have Anne Mwaura.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Anne. I'm wearing green. I'm representing, the wealth of mental health.
I know. I wanted to throw it on there. I love it.
I was thinking about it so hard.
All right, so ladies, what I want to know is, what are some of your key, go-tos when it comes to dealing with your own personal mental health? Whether, it's a good side, what are the healthy habits that you're doing to keep your mental wellness in check?
Go on.
I learned the hardest thing last year was setting boundaries. I realized I lacked boundaries within myself and other people. And if you don't know where you stand with yourself, then how can you let people treat you a certain way? Because you're going to keep saying yes. So stopping being a yes gal or a yes guy. And even if it's so uncomfortable, that first no, oh my gosh, you say no and then you sit at home and you're like, do they think of me that way? But then you start to think, how do I actually feel in that situation? What I have gained from this? So one of the most healthiest things I'm still learning and not great at it is setting boundaries within myself and with other people as well.
Communicating that, right? Immediately, especially.
Yeah. Amazing. I think I'm there as well. No is a complete answer, and I'm not explaining anything. That's the mood I'm on. Like my mental health, I don't need to explain to people like why I chose me. Yeah,
I think for me is also my one. I think for the last 2 years has been just removing myself in crowds that just no longer serve me because I'm different and just not needing to explain myself that I'm no longer in this vibe. And it's nothing wrong that these people might have done. I just know that I've moved on and being okay with that. Also, being comfortable in that. What about you?
Yeah, I think very much just being comfortable in your own skin, and also sometimes just releasing things. Not everyone's going to understand you. Not everyone's going to agree with you, and that's okay.
Yeah. I think also another thing I'm very sensitive on is energy. Energy doesn't lie. If the energy is off, I'm using bolting.
Sis, say it louder. Say it louder.
Yes. I'm not sassing it anymore. Yeah. It feels like my inner voice. I'm taking those voice selves and I'm walking.
I think even being triggered as well. You might not realize it could be from something way back when and you don't even realize someone says something or a certain scent or a certain meal and you're like, why am I leaving feeling drained? It's that feeling of emptiness after being around people, being around a situation. There's no need for that anymore.
And the ridicule that comes from people thinking they'll get back at you with referring you with an older you.
Yes.
And wound.
Yeah.
Like, bye. I'll slap that door on you.
Yeah.
And also understanding however you feel it's valid and trusting.
Yeah. Girls, that's the bold one. We're starting bold.
Yeah, love it.
Super exciting.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to mental health. And that name itself comes with so many connotations or misconceptions of, if I say I have a mental health, or maybe am I in a straitjacket? And with what you do with Bonga, maybe take us through some of the things that Bonga is about, and those kind of things, that the barriers that you're trying to shift and change when it comes to conversations around mental health, depression, stress, the difference between the two.
Right.
Yeah.
So Bonga is free anonymous counselling and peer-to-peer counselling. So if you go onto www.bonga.oa.ke, you can go there and say, hi, I think I might be bipolar, or my child is acting out, or my husband hasn't been home for weeks, and you'll find someone there to talk to. So it's all about breaking the stigma of mental wellness. So the reason why instead of saying mental health, you say mental wellness, is because the opposite of mental health would be mental illness, right? Which means you're sick. And there's such a big spectrum on that, and people don't want to be sick. And then some of mental illnesses are not curable. People don't want to know, you're not sick for a long time. But if you say my mental wellness, everyone's striving to just be their better self. They're being well with themselves. So with Bonga, you get different age ranges, a lot more men than female. And what's interesting right now is we're seeing a lot more men, like it was in the pandemic, opening up because it's anonymous. And there's no one to judge you. We've seen some stories where someone's like, I lost my job 5 months ago. We're running out of cash. School fees is coming up. And you see the other guys rallying there. Message me privately, or how can I reach you? And it's nice to see those communication happening because it's creating a sense of community in Kenya. Because someone in Bungoma or Samburu is talking about these things, or someone's about to go to university and they're worried about their appearance. And you have people being like, oh, yes, I had acne, or yes, I have these certain issues and ailments, and you see people talking to each other. So that's what Bonga has become, a safe space of people to just connect and realize they're not alone, and you're breaking the stigma.
I like that, because I like that the fact that you've just even educated us to be more conversant with the terminology mental wellness. It's true, it even just changes the mood and the conversation. Any reason why, or what was the inspiration as to why you found yourself being part of Bonga?
So, wow, I think so much has happened. I think it's a small combination of things. It's talking to friends and talking to different people. I think starting radio was when it really exacerbated it, because that's the first time I got to talk about mental illness on air. I was like, hi, I was diagnosed with this. And for the longest time, people were like, don't talk about it. But then in my DMs, it was so different. It was people literally like pages, messages on messages of like people talking. And it was so overwhelming because I can't relate to like a 40-year-old man, or I can't relate to a 16-year-old girl. Or I can't relate to, let's say if someone says that they're bipolar or schizophrenic. So getting the right help now became the next thing. But it's so expensive. So that's where the free anonymous counseling comes from. Because if your insurance doesn't cover it, or you have to pick between your meal or what you're going to wear, or your cab ride home, or even your bus ride home, or going to see a therapist, it's just not fair. And then some of them need medication. So how do you rally the community to come together and help each other out with something that is so natural and so normal? Because everyone knows if your mind isn't right, you're not going to function. You're going to show up at your worst self, and that's not helpful to anyone. So that's what really inspired me to like, I don't show up as my best self every day, but I'm not alone, and it gives me comfort knowing that we're in this together doing this.
That's such a big element, accessibility. At least we're here in the city, but when it comes to more of the rural areas and having access to mental health facilities and access to professionals, what does that landscape look like more so like in places outside of Nairobi or the big cities?
It's grown so much in the last 2 years. When we started, I remember some people were so against it. You're bringing Western ideas into Kenyan minds. These people are crazy. Why do we need to go out of our way to help them? It's a deficiency in the mother. That was a lot. It was always on the woman as well. So in the last 2 years, it has changed so much. The conversation is a lot bigger than we ever expected. I don't know where that shift came. I don't know where people switched on and they said, hey, I'm not okay. But in the last 2 years, you see a bigger shift of it being more acceptable. Going to hospital, not yet, but talking, we're there. Yeah.
Maybe COVID played a part, right? Because we were all in one boat, same storm, right? And so I think just the fact that now maybe your pockets are running dry because your points of consultancy wasn't there, like your jobs. Yeah. So I think everyone now just felt, oh, even me, I'm struggling, so maybe.
Yeah, and I think also Kenya is a villager family, type of situation where like in Japan, everyone's so isolated. COVID wouldn't affect you if you've been alone for so long. But now in a Kenyan sense, yes, we can't go for a Friday drink to unwind and chat because Kenyans, it's not a good way to cope with things, but Kenyans will celebrate a birth and a death.
Yeah.
Kenyans are there for a birthday and a funeral. Kenyans are there for work celebrations, for, you could have just gotten promoted or or changed your nail color.
Yes.
They're there to celebrate you. And I think that, yes, that feeling of isolation and even the smallest things couldn't be celebrated really affected people and got them to start opening up.
I hear you.
Yeah.
You brought culture and women being blamed for this, deficiencies. So I don't know. I know maybe more than 4 women who either have gone through postpartum depression or they have children and they are on the spectrum. So before it was like, hizi ni jinsi za kwao. Like there are women who now have spaces. They've created safe spaces to talk about this stuff like autism, stuff like ADHD. So what is changing in that culture, women, that conversation for mental wellness?
I think awareness is so key, and this is why I love Bonga. It's about information being given. Even I do a show called The Fuse. If you listen in, there's Health and Self, where you give the right information, where people might listen in and thought, oh my God, it was me. Like I've done this to my family, or they've been waiting so long to have a child, and then something happens and the child is special, right? And different, and that's okay too. But now the society is now shunning them and isolating them. What information is given people is another sense of community, where you can go onto like Bonga and then find someone in a WhatsApp group who has a child of autism, or maybe has a child who's a little bit different and difficult in school. How did you handle this? Or how did you change formulas? Small things like that. You have a WhatsApp group outside of everyone watching you, where you can be like, today I just don't like this feeling, or today I'm feeling I can't get out of bed. And you have that support within the support system. So that's been destigmatized. And then I do feel a lot of women now are standing up to the idea that it took 2 people to get here. So how assure you it was me? How sure you it wasn't just nature versus nurture? And I do love the fact that women are letting other women know it might have been you, but it might have not, and don't take the full blame on that, because now you're here in this situation. What do we do from here? And especially like with postpartum, that can actually come much later in life, and that's something I didn't learn until going to different seminars with women. You can have a 15-year-old and get postpartum, and you just can't relate and connect, and you're isolated, right? I didn't know that. So going to seminars and hearing other people's story, everyone's story is so different. That opens up your mind, and just even a podcast like this, allowing people to freely discuss this at home while they're watching this on YouTube, while they're watching this and on their phones.
Like you say, you never know, like someone might be listening and then maybe what we're saying might be like, oh, I've seen this in so and so. I think I should have that conversation. I think speaking of seeing things, so how did you perhaps recognize that you were struggling mentally? And if for somebody who is listening or watching, they might recognize or not know that they're struggling, like what are some of the things you can do to maybe identify
that something's off?
Okay,
so I actually have 2 sides of this. I've talked about this before, but when I was about 12 years old, my parents realized something was off. Like I just didn't want to eat anymore. I'd go mute. I cannot shut up for the life of me. So for me to not talk was absurd in the house. I didn't want to eat, but those are things that I found out much later, a control mechanism. So I couldn't control what was going on, being bullied. Outside of that environment, I can control what I consume and how much I speak. I didn't want to consume space. So as a kid, you don't know, but if you're a parent, that is something to look out for in your child. They start to withdraw, or they start to get really aggressive, really snappy, really angry. They continuously speak about the same thing. People will mention the same thing that's bothering them over and over, no matter how old or young they are. So if that's not been addressed, then for sure. And then having open communication as well is something. If they really are on the spectrum already, making them feel special, having them around people who are quite similar as well. And you can see that in school. You can ask the teachers as well to set you up in other situations that allow that to happen. My parents didn't tell me that something was wrong for the longest time. Is it a good thing? I don't know. But it later on now has helped me to be more open-minded, because I can see in other people. Now, as an adult, when I was diagnosed with PTSD, how did I know something is off? Oh my gosh, it's like a roller coaster. I can see why they say people like who've been to war experience that, because it was things like I thought these were normal, but like flashbacks. I would maybe be sitting here in the middle of a conversation and I just stop. because something has come into my mind in the middle of a sentence, and then I'll continue. I'll be like, anyway, blah blah blah. So it's my co-host Nadia Favory. She's amazing. She's also noticed like weird changes, or I'd speak of the same thing over and over, or I couldn't sleep. Insomnia was 3-4 days. And you're running on steam, like the highs, you are invincible. I'll get every job done instantly. And then when you crash, you don't want to do anything. You literally have this like weird taste in your mouth. You feel sick. You feel like so sad to wake up. But then when you don't try to sleep, you don't want to sleep. So you're just like, I'm tired all the time. It's this exhaustion that you just can't fix, and that's when
just describe adulting.
Something was wrong. Yeah. So that's not a consistent. So when those are not balanced, because yes, life is exhausting, but then now when it stops being at a balance, when it's at an extreme,
everything is extreme.
Everything is extreme.
Tired, quiet.
There's a way that we throw the word stress around. I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. I'm so stressed. Maybe break it down for us. How many ways that can manifest in terms of mental disorders, and what can you do to seek for help, and where is that help, especially for people of from low income households, and people who are probably they're wired. You don't seek help. We don't talk about things. You just want to just keep that in.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember talking to someone called Tim, and what he described is what we would call anxiety and depression, but that's been from birth, so that's so normal, right? And so to him, we look weak because we've diagnosed something that is a constant, but to us, we look like get help because you're not meant to normally feel that way. So it's finding that middle ground, because when you become aware of something as well, you have to fix it. So it would be easy. Ignorance is bliss on both sides. So it's also really being internal and choosing for yourself, is this consistently happening? And is this now starting to affect other aspects of my life? Right? So everyone gets stress, yes. But let's say I'm a man and I'm stressed at work, I'm stressed at home, and then I start to act out. I start to drink a lot more. I'm starting to become violent, or I'm starting to become, it doesn't even have to be that extreme. I'm starting to be passive aggressive. I don't touch my wife anymore. I don't look at her. You know what I mean? Or I make snide comments, small things like that, building, breaking someone else down because you're not dealing with the stresses. Now it falls into, we're getting into mental illness that's affecting people else outside of that situation.
It's crazy you talked about alcohol as a coping mechanism to numb yourself, and I feel like right here at home,
it's hectic.
That's why we drink better.
That's
why we drink better.
Not more.
Us and Russians are cold. I don't know what we are.
A question: what self-care practices do you? This is for everyone. Just like, let's all share self practices that help us show up more. The fact, congratulations on being confident, having the boldness to speak boldly about the challenges you have experiences, and even when you are going through them at that time, that is such a brave thing to do. Not many people can sit and always open that room for doing that. So kudos to you, because honestly, you make it easier for other people to be okay to recognize that this is an issue that I have, but get the help. So what are some of the practices that you do to either find that voice to speak out, or balance when you're struggling? And all of you to share as well.
I don't know. I think something, Anne, that you actually taught me is just breathing, simply breathing. The practice of grounding yourself, understanding your surroundings, because a lot of times I think anxiety can get the best of you. And sometimes you don't realize that's what you're going through, but you pause and you focus on your breathing. So I think that's been one practical, easy tool for me.
I think my source of stillness comes from journaling. I dump things. It didn't work for me. I just journal. And then sometimes I just want to quiet my mind. So I close my room, and then I count 10 backward until my mind is quiet. It's a struggle because you're like, vibration over here, emails, everything is happening, money. But, the art of just quieting your mind, that stillness has been my anchor for me.
Yeah, that changed.
And
my life.
eating well.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Sleep as well.
Yeah.
Whatever you put in your body and sleep. Game changer.
Journaling saved my life completely. Because for me, it's always been venting with good people around me. But then sometimes you don't know who those good people are. So at least a journal, you're guaranteed it's you and a book.
Yeah.
But having the right people and just being able to vent, and they can vent as well. Sometimes saying it out loud is so peaceful because you realize, oh my gosh, maybe it isn't that big of a problem, or you find a solution to what's happening. Or it's just that release of, damn, you know?
Yeah. Do you go for therapy?
Absolutely.
How frequent?
We are best friends.
What's the best tip your therapist has given you?
Ooh, that's good. Who are you trying to prove this to? So, right? With everything, it's like, who are you trying to prove this to? You know, you haven't proved it to yourself, but you're trying to seek outside validation in every aspect. Who are you trying to prove this to? And I was just like,
Pause.
who am I actually trying to prove this to? They're gonna like me if they like me. They're gonna not if they don't. So like, who am I proving this to? Yeah.
Even the process of finding a therapist, like how hard was that, or easy, or
The hardest thing of my life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've had therapists prescribe God. I've talked about this before. I've had therapists prescribe God. I've had therapists because working in
Prescribed God?
God, just if you pray harder, and you're like, bruh, I'm praying the best I can, and I'm not getting
Direct line, it's not working.
Like, I don't know if he's busy. Clearly, we're all in this, so the line is busy. But that one really broke my heart because I was like, I was at my lowest at that point. So I remember when they said that, it was like, I'm not doing anything right. I'm doing all the steps. I'm in therapy, but then you're telling me God is pissed at me. God, it doesn't get worse than like man or woman upstairs pissed at you. So like finding different therapists has been hard. Having different colored therapists as well has also been a different experience, because I've had like white therapists that can't really relate to certain things. You know, I'm coming home, I'll be like, if I'm talking about my parents, to them they're like, you know,
It's so dramatic.
yeah, and I'm like, girl, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, how do I talk to my mom about this or my dad about this? So finding the right therapist is trial and error. It's like finding the right partner, and if it feels wrong, that's okay. Ask them to refer you to other people within the field that you're going in for. And then also, don't self-diagnose. Going to therapy, you don't have to be diagnosed with anything. It's just talking to a third party, but don't self-diagnose, because then you'll find the wrong therapist.
Yeah. Or even just get the wrong treatment.
Exactly.
My self-care practices are 5 deep breaths if it's like really heavy. Sometimes I'll breathe into a brown bag, practice silence and quietness, and I like to be left alone. So if I feel that I'm like either all socialed out or whatever, no one is seeing me. Once I have everything in the fridge and I'm good to go, then I'll just like stay indoors. So like trying to stay away, and if I feel like I'm a bit snappy, then I have to separate myself, because I'm projecting something, or it could be maybe something didn't go through, and so now that person unfortunately has caught me at a bad time.
Yeah, can I ask a question? Because people don't talk about this much. What negative practices have you done to cope with mental illness or mental health or mental wellness?
partying too much. Right.
Being outside.
Wrong relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and maybe staying in a relationship longer than I needed to, just because I felt like this was my comfort, and so tolerating emotional abuse or how I'm talked to. So I think for me it would be relationship, staying when I needed to be out.
Unhealthy attachment to environment, to things, to people. Yeah. Yeah. Like I ask myself, what is that environment feeding me that I lack within me? And that was the game-changing question. And I boldly walked out of that environment. Yeah. So yeah, those were my things.
That's a nice question.
Yeah.
I like that.
For me, it would be definitely alcohol. Being the life of the party, And then if you can keep the party going, especially like Kenyans, like if you can keep the party going, you just need to bounce around different groups of people as sad as you. And misery loves company, and then enabling as well. You know what I mean? If my friends would come to me and be like, you're moving a little too mad, I would be like, hey, well, let's talk next week. And I'm going to find the friends who are not doing that. So learning to cut that off, especially with such a drinking culture and drinking smarter. That's why I really do love like things like Johnny Walker being like, drink smarter. You don't have to drink so much. You know what I mean? It's about the quality of what you're doing as well. That's so important.
Yeah. And just recognizing that and being aware of that, isn't it? And so what would be, for anyone who is listening and watching us right now, that wants to be in your position, either identifying what they're struggling with or identifying their voice, being able to speak up, talk to that person.
All right, so if you want to reach out, please, you're always welcome. My DM's always open. The show is always open as well. The first step is being aware that something is off. So if you're relating or resonating, for sure reach out, and it doesn't have to even be to me, it could be to the community around you, and just start that conversation, because that's why I keep saying destigmatize, right? If you just start by saying, yo, like we've had conversations where I'm like, girl, I'm having an out-of-body experience and I feel like everything's happening to me, and that can become overwhelming because you have no control over that. The one thing you do have control about is taking a deep breath and then now writing down, I feel this because of this. And if you don't even know why, cry, pray, and then start again. I feel this because of this, or this person makes me feel like this. How long can I tolerate? Or can I even go to that person and tell them they feel like this? It's breaking it down small by small. Some things are really big, like your job. I don't advise going to quit your job or telling your boss they suck. I would say maybe figure out in that small space of work, how can I make myself as happy as possible in this space? Does it mean switching off the computer at 5 p.m. and that's it? I don't want to hear from no one at the office. Or does it mean finding a friend within the office that you can just go have a little lunch with and you can talk about anything else outside of work? Creating a safe space within yourself, slowly by slowly. Yeah, it takes time, but it's worth it. www.bonga.or.ke, free anonymous counseling, and you can find me on It's Anne Mwaura as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making it safe for us to have these conversations, which are really, really necessary and must not stop. So continue doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take a lot of boldness to speak out, these things, and to just put yourself there. Yeah. Thank you for everything you're doing. And I think for me, my parting shot would be so obsessively aware about yourself to realize which is a glimmer or a trigger. Sometimes, glimmers can be, oh my God, I'm so in love with you, but that's your source of trigger. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, how do you detach those? Yeah.
I think that inside work, it's not a one-day job. So having patience and giving yourself grace, I think for me, that's been a big thing this year, just allowing myself grace. I may not get it the first time, maybe not the second or the third time, but having a sense that there's progress. Progress is the path.
I think 2 things. Forgive yourself. Second thing, the word responsibility. Responsibility is the ability to respond. So pay attention and then take responsibility for any actions, any decisions, because it is the ability to respond. So forgive yourself and have the ability to respond. That would be for me. What a conversation.
Yeah. Maybe we should take one deep breath. Hello, it's video girl Momo Hoya. I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. Continue walking boldly. Thank you.
And you've been listening to us on Capital FM. Our episodes air on Wednesday at 10 p.m. You can also watch us or listen to us through Capital FM, YouTube and SoundCloud, or Sister Speaks Global on YouTube, as well as Google Podcasts, Apple and Spotify. You can continue interacting with us through social media on Twitter, Instagram at Sister Speaks 254, as well as TikTok, or at OVAReact Podcast on Instagram.
And of course, this episode has been proudly sponsored by Johnny Walker, a bold drink to enjoy in moderation, and drink responsibly, not for sale to persons under the age of 18. Don't drink and drive. Drink better, not more.
Absolutely. It's your girl, Lush Angela, and I look forward to continuing this conversation in a bold fashion.
Overreactors, we forgot to wish our overreactors a Happy New Year.
Yes.
Happy
Happy
New
2024.
I wonder what's your, in the comment, please tell us what's your word. I think us is bold.
Us is bold.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's
Overreact.